You're not failing to lose belly fat. Your body is protecting it, and the real reason might be happening while you sleep. You did everything they told you to do. You cut the carbs. You tracked every calorie. You pushed yourself through workouts even on the days your body begged you to stop. And still, that layer around your belly didn't move. Not slowly. Not stubbornly. Not at all. If anything, it felt softer. Puffier. Almost as if your body was holding on tighter the harder you tried to let go. I remember staring at the mirror one morning with this strange mix of frustration and curiosity. Because part of me felt defeated, but another part of me felt confused. Deeply confused. I've always been fascinated by biology. The way the body adapts, protects, survives. It's not random. It follows patterns. It obeys signals. So when effort and outcome stopped matching, I couldn't just shrug it off. I needed to understand why. Because logically, the math made sense. Eat less. Move more. Create a deficit. Lose fat. That's the rule we've all been taught. But biology doesn't always follow simple rules. Biology follows survival. And that realization hit me harder than any workout ever could. I started noticing something unsettling. People around me were doing everything right. They were disciplined, consistent, motivated. Some of them were even eating less than ever before. Yet their bodies looked tired. Their energy was low. Their sleep was broken. And that stubborn belly fat, the one place they wanted to change the most, remained untouched. It didn't look like laziness. It looked like defense. That's when a different question started forming in my mind. Not a fitness question. Not a diet question. A biological question. What if the body isn't refusing to burn fat? What if it's protecting it? What if that belly fat isn't a mistake, or a failure, or a lack of discipline, but a signal? A signal that somewhere deep inside, your body believes you are under threat. And once I allowed myself to consider that possibility, everything changed. Because suddenly, this wasn't about willpower anymore. It was about survival. That single question kept echoing in my mind, and it led me deeper into the biology of something most of us never think about, belly fat itself. The more I read, the more I realized I had misunderstood fat for most of my life. I used to see it as passive, like extra storage sitting quietly under the skin. But visceral fat, the kind that wraps around your organs, is not passive at all. It's active tissue. It listens. It responds. In some ways, it behaves almost like an organ designed for survival. What struck me first was the discovery that this fat is loaded with receptors for cortisol, the body's primary stress hormone. Not just a few receptors, millions of them. If hormones are messages, then receptors are the ears that hear them. And visceral fat has incredibly sensitive ears, tuned specifically to stress. That changed how I saw the human body. Because it means your belly is not randomly gaining fat. It is reacting to signals. I remember sitting at my desk late one night, reading a study that described visceral fat as metabolically defensive. That word stayed with me. Defensive. Not lazy. Not broken. Defensive. It suggested that the body wasn't malfunctioning. It was responding exactly as it was designed to respond when it senses danger. Here's where the biology becomes both fascinating and a little unsettling. When stress levels rise, cortisol increases. When cortisol increases, visceral fat becomes more active and begins to expand. But as that fat grows, it releases inflammatory signals that push cortisol even higher. It's not a simple cause and effect relationship. It's a loop, a feedback system that feeds itself. And suddenly, a pattern I had seen for years started to make sense. People who lived under constant pressure, tight deadlines, poor sleep, emotional strain, often carried weight in the same place. Not because they lacked discipline, but because their bodies were operating in protection mode. The deeper I went into this research, the clearer it became that fat storage was not just about energy. It was about safety. Once I began to see fat storage as a response to safety, I started looking at my daily habits differently, not as healthy or unhealthy, but as signals my body was constantly interpreting. That shift was uncomfortable, because some of the routines I was proud of suddenly looked suspicious. They were the very habits I believed proved my discipline. The ones I told myself were moving me forward. Yet when I examined them through the lens of biology, they started to look less like solutions and more like stress messages disguised as health. The first one was endurance exercise. For years, I believed that longer workouts meant better results. I would push through fatigue, stay on the machine a little longer, run a little farther, telling myself that consistency would eventually pay off. And on the surface, it looked productive. I was sweating. My heart rate was high. I felt accomplished when I finished. But something strange was happening beneath that effort. Instead of feeling stronger over time, I felt more drained. My recovery slowed. My sleep became lighter. My body felt tight, almost guarded. It was as if the harder I pushed, the more resistant my system became. When I learned how the body interprets prolonged, moderate intensity exercise, it finally made sense. From an evolutionary perspective, sustained effort without adequate rest resembles a long journey under pressure, like traveling far distances while resources are uncertain. In that situation, the body doesn't relax. It prepares. It conserves. Then, there was fasting. I admired people who could go long hours without eating. It felt disciplined, controlled, even empowering. But I began to notice that when fasting was layered on top of stress, deadlines, and poor sleep, my energy became unstable. My mood shifted. My body felt colder, slower, less responsive. And the most revealing sign appeared at night. Waking suddenly in the early morning, alert for no clear reason, heart beating faster than it should. That moment, quiet and dark, felt like a message. Not a failure of sleep, but a signal from a body still on guard. That quiet realization in the middle of the night forced me to confront something I had been avoiding. Maybe my body wasn't resisting change. Maybe it was waiting for reassurance. So instead of asking, "How can I push harder?" I started asking a different question. What would make my body feel safe again? That question led me down a path I didn't expect. The answers weren't dramatic. They weren't extreme. In fact, they felt almost too simple at first, which made me skeptical. But biology has a way of rewarding consistency over intensity, and the more I experimented, the more I began to see patterns emerge. One of the first changes I made was surprisingly gentle. After meals, instead of sitting down immediately or rushing back to work, I began taking short walks. Just 10 or 15 minutes. Nothing exhausting. No pressure to burn calories. At first, it felt insignificant, like it couldn't possibly matter. But over time, I noticed something. Subtle. My energy stayed more stable. The heavy, sluggish feeling after eating started to disappear. And later in the day, my cravings were quieter. When I looked into the physiology behind it, the mechanism made perfect sense. Muscles have the ability to pull glucose directly from the bloodstream when they contract. That simple movement acts like a natural buffer, preventing sharp spikes and crashes. It's not about burning massive amounts of energy. It's about creating balance. Then I shifted how I approached exercise. Instead of long, draining sessions, I introduced brief bursts of effort followed by real rest. Those short moments of intensity felt different. They woke my body up without overwhelming it. I felt stronger afterward, not depleted. My breathing settled quickly, and my recovery improved in ways I hadn't experienced before. I also began paying attention to nourishment in a more deliberate way. Not just how much I ate, but what signals my meals were sending. When protein intake increased and meals felt satisfying, my body responded with a kind of quiet confidence, steady energy, clearer focus, fewer sudden drops in motivation. It slowly became clear to me that the body doesn't release stored energy when it feels threatened. It releases energy when it senses stability. That understanding stayed with me, but there was still one missing piece, something deeper than movement, deeper than nutrition, something that lived beneath the surface of daily habits. It took me a while to see it, because it didn't look like a fitness strategy. It looked like an emotion. For most of my life, I thought stress was just a mental state, something you pushed through, ignored, or managed with discipline. But the more I learned about physiology, the clearer it became that stress is not just a feeling. It is chemistry. It changes heart rate, hormone levels, digestion, sleep patterns. And if stress can reshape the body, then calm can reshape it too. That idea led me to something surprisingly simple: intentional moments of genuine appreciation. Not forced positivity. Not pretending everything is perfect. Just pausing long enough to notice something good and allowing the body to feel it. I began doing this quietly, often at the end of the day. Taking a slow breath. Letting my shoulders drop. Recognizing that, in that moment, nothing was chasing me. Nothing was threatening me. It felt small, almost insignificant, but my body responded in ways I didn't expect. My sleep deepened. My mornings felt steadier. The tension I carried in my chest softened. Over time, I realized this was not about motivation or discipline at all. It was about reassurance. Because when the body finally believes the danger is past, it stops defending itself. And when it stops defending, it begins to let go. What I've come to understand through this journey is that the body is not an enemy to be defeated, but a system to be understood. When we push harder without listening, the body protects itself. But when we create stability, through better sleep, balanced movement, steady nourishment, and moments of calm, it begins to trust again. And trust changes biology. Fat loss, energy, and resilience are not rewards for punishment. They are natural responses to safety. The real transformation doesn't start in the gym or the kitchen. It starts in the nervous system, in the quiet signals that tell the body, you are safe now. The deeper lesson is this: progress in life often comes not from doing more, but from doing the right things consistently. Sometimes, the most powerful change is not intensity, but awareness. Pay attention to your sleep, your stress, your recovery, and the signals your body is sending every day. Small adjustments, like walking after meals, protecting your rest, or slowing down for a moment of gratitude, can create momentum that compounds over time. That's how real, sustainable change happens in the real world. Now I'm curious about your experience. Have you ever noticed your body holding on to weight or feeling exhausted even when you were trying your best to be healthy? Please share your thoughts down in the comments, so everyone can learn from each other's experiences. And if this perspective helped you see your body in a new way, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support truly gives us the motivation to keep creating meaningful, science-based content for you next time.